With the new featured exotic armors list comes fresh builds, and with it, some that are whack and some that are wild. So let's talk about Swarmers. Swarmers are the perfect Strand exotic, and I think they're also an extremely unique one, which is thanks to how cool Threadlings are. Threadlings to me straddle this really interesting line between the three central pillars of buildcrafting on Warlock, being abilities, subclass effects, and summons. While there's things like Hellion, which is a summon that can Scorch, or Ionic Sentry, which you throw out like a grenade and can jolt or cause bolt charges, they're mostly built to function individually. Hellion doesn't change how your Rift works, and Ionic Sentry doesn't change how your grenade works. They're just separate summons on top of those abilities, but on Strand Warlock, just about everything is Threadlings. Your summons are Threadlings, your debuffs can become Threadlings, your grenades, rifts, and weapons can cause Threadlings, and even your super is Threadlings. I've always loved Strand for how creative and unique it is as a subclass, and how well its identity is woven into its gameplay. Threadlings are very clearly Strand Warlock's identity, and it's meant to fulfill that fantasy of commanding an army of summons, and nothing does it quite like Swarmers does. Swarmers not only spawn Threadlings when you break a tangle, but they also cause Threadlings to unravel enemies they damage. Unraveled enemies take additional damage from unraveling projectiles, but they also become tangles when they're defeated, meaning Threadlings can essentially loop back into themselves. With the right build, Swarmers can fill the battlefield with almost a dozen Threadlings at once, activating debuffs left, right, and center, while dishing out an insane amount of damage to clear crowds or eat a champion whole. I had so much fun with this build, so let's go over the specifics so you can see exactly what I was working with, and I can talk a bit more afterwards about why I think it's so cool. Of course, with Swarmers, the name of the game is Threadlings, so my first aspect was Weaver's Call, to not only spawn Threadlings when I cast my Rift, but to perch up to 5 extra ones. For my second aspect, I went with the Wanderer, so whenever I broke a tangle, I not only got the Threadlings from Swarmers, but I also caused a suspending burst. For my fragments, I went with Thread of Evolution to increase Threadling damage, which is a must-have for this build as it's a pretty sizable 33% increase. For my other fragments, I wanted to play around suspensions, so I went with Thread of Wisdom to spawn extra orbs, Thread of Warding to get woven mail from those orbs, and Thread of Mind to get extra Rift energy back whenever I defeated a suspended target. These all paired perfectly with my exotic weapon of choice, which was Wishkeeper, as it not only causes suspensions from its perk, but it comes with Hatchling as one of its catalysts. While you're popping heads, you'll be spawning Threadlings, unraveling targets to create tangles, and whenever you need more class energy or to CC a target, you can drop that suspending snare. With the consistency of suspensions and Thread of Mind, class regeneration is really quick, and I was almost always able to have another Rift ready by the time my previous one ran out. Not only was this great to keep myself healthy, but every time I dropped a Rift, I was sending out more Threadlings to deal damage and unravel targets, which could create more tangles and restart the cycle. If you felt the survivability wasn't enough, you could definitely use Buried Bloodline as your exotic for Devour, and use a Strand primary with Hatchling instead. While that'll work really well, Wishkeeper was just a total blast to use, and I think adding in the suspensions cranks this build up to 11. With that in mind, for my other weapons, I used an Arcane Embrace with Volt Shot for overloads and for a close range option, and I also went with a crossbow as my heavy for barriers. If I was in an activity with a lot of overloads, I went with a Chill Clip Submersion for extra options to stun them, but if I was just looking for damage, I ran Opaque with Frenzy. I don't think there's any armor mods that are super necessary. I just tried to build a bit more around Rift Regeneration with Bolstering Detonation, Focusing Strike, and an Insulation mod. You could probably swap these out if you wanted to for something like a Grenade Font or even Reload mods if you'd prefer. For the armor set, however, I would highly recommend Collective Psyche if you have it to increase the length of your suspensions and unravel. It makes a big difference in the heat of battle getting those extra seconds on suspensions, and it also frees up a fragment slot if you're planning on using Thread of Continuity. The Artifact mod has a lot of Strand options this season, and a lot that are focused on Threadling, so I'd highly suggest using just about everything it has to offer. Threadling Proliferation is fantastic, as it has the chance to generate an extra Threadling when you deal Strand weapon damage, and with Hatchling you can spawn up to 3 Threadlings from 1 arrow. Pack Tactics is incredible, as it not only increases Threadling damage, but it lets them stun unstops as well. It only takes 2 Threadlings to activate the perk, so if you see an unstop, you can stun them immediately with both your Rift or your Threadling Grenade, as both options spawn 3. With the amount of Threadlings that'll be out with this build, Pack Tactics will always be active. This does also increase the damage of your super, which is amazing. As you can see here, without Pack Tactics, my super dealt around 5,500 damage after the grenade, and with it active, it deals around 6,500 damage. Threaded Blast is great to increase the size and damage of tangles when you break them with a Strand weapon, and since this build generates a lot of tangles, it's a perfect fit. Argent Quiver nets Wishkeeper an extra 35% damage when it's active, and with the amount of orbs you can generate, it's really easy to always have it rolling, with extra armor charges up to still use surges or fonts. Finally, Tangled Web is insane, as anytime you defeat a Strand debuff target to create a tangle, it'll cause a suspending burst. This includes Threadling kills, as they unravel targets with Swarmers, so just about every single tangle you create will also come with a suspending burst. With the suspensions from Tangled Web, Wishkeeper, and any tangle you break, you'll be able to CC constantly and generate rifts back in seconds. I think Swarmers are really interesting, as they enable builds like this one, which is extremely specialized and specifically built around Threadlings, but that focus enables a really well-rounded use of Strand's kit. Although the entire game plan revolves around generating as many Threadlings as you possibly can, those Threadlings then go on to introduce everything from suspensions to unravel, or tangles, orbs, and ability generation. They're also just extremely fun to use. There's something really satisfying about watching the Threadlings all scatter around the battlefield and seeing all the unraveling rounds, suspensions, and tangle explosions going off. I think it's a really great balance between interactivity and autonomy, as you have to go through the effort of creating the Threadlings and building around it, but once they're out, they do the heavy lifting for you. While it was always the case that building around Threadlings was really fun, it wasn't always true that they were good, but I think it is now. It was really great to see Threadlings, and Hatchlings specifically, get the love that they deserved, and in my opinion, they're one of the coolest tools in the Warlock's arsenal. This build puts out a really surprising amount of damage, provides a wide range of utility, and offers enough rift regeneration to give Strand Warlock the survivability option it desperately needs. All in all, I loved my time with this build, and while the Threadlings themselves steal the show, it really wouldn't be the same without Swarmers. They're fun, they're potent, they're flashy, and they're downright wild. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Just want to mention I'll be streaming on Twitch every Wednesday to Sunday starting at 7 p.m. Eastern over at twitch.tv/callmekimbo_. There's a link in the description, and I'm going to be playing Arc Raiders this weekend, so if you're interested, I'd love to have you by. There's also a dim link down below if you want to give this exact build a try, or if you want to use it as a base for your own spin on it. Subscribe to the channel to keep an eye out for more videos soon, and let me know in the comments what you think of Swarmers.